Hi there, welcome to Scrap and Coffee. I'm going to start with the construction of a new project that I'm going to call The Gift. And we are going to start with two pieces of heavyweight cardstock. These are your pieces A in the cutting guide, and they are the same size and the same score lines on both pieces. And I'm using 110-pound cardstock from Recollections that I bought at Michael's, 8.5 by 11 inches. So I wanted to use the most heavyweight that I could find, and that was only 8.5 by 11, but I want to show you that that's possible to use. So I'm going to start with my first piece A, and before I'm going to cut, I'm going to apply some double-sided tape on my half-inch, the part where you have a score line at 1/2 inch, and you see me applying it here on the bumpy side, but please apply it on the dented side. So you can fold towards the bumpy side on most of your score lines. But I'm just going with it, it's not a big deal. So I apply that all over the length, and then I am going to cut out a V shape at my score lines there. So just cut at an angle and taper the cut edge on the side, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side because you will have a score line there as well. And again taper that cut edge, and then you can fold and burnish on that 1/2 inch score line, and actually you can just stick this 1/2 inch down. So if you place your tape on the dented side, you will fold towards your dented side and just stick it down on top of your piece. So I'm giving this a good burnish, and because it's a heavyweight cardstock, you just need to work it a little bit more. At least I find it's a little bit more work. So before I stick it down, but you can just do it, I'm going to cut out the large square on the other side of the piece. And here I'm using my craft knife. What I'm doing here on the short side is I'm pre-folding my score lines here a little bit so I can see them a little bit better. But I'm going to cut out that score line there at 1.25 inch on the short side, and you can just use your scissors for this. So just cut on both sides of that score line, and then make sure that you can cut it out, take it out. So then that square flap, you are going to angle it from the cut edge slightly, you don't need a lot, just slightly, and then cut a little bit off the top, just like that. And we are going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm just checking if I did what I needed to do. But if you use your scissors, you don't really need to pre-fold, but it's I find it easier to see my score line when I pre-fold it a little bit. So again, here I'm just cutting on both sides of the score line, up to that score line in the other direction, and then cut it out. And then again, angle that one and cut a little bit off the top edge. So now I'm going to stick that 1/2 inch down because I haven't done that yet. And the 1/2 inch strips will be on the outside of the box that I'm making here. I wanted to have as much of the construction on the outside of the box because there's a drawer going in there, and I didn't want it to bump up against any construction strips, so that's why it's on the outside. Also, it's a pretty tight fit, so you don't want to make it even tighter. So now I'm folding on all my other score lines, and because I need to fold towards the dented side on these ones, I'm just pre-folding towards the bumpy side and then towards the dented side, But yeah, if you do it in the right way, you just need to fold towards the bumpy side and just burnish. So that's the last one, and then only the two flaps on the longer side. So now what I'm going to do is those flaps, I'm going to fold them in, and I'm going to use the wet glue for this. You can use tape as well. But I'm going to put some wet glue on the outside of these flaps. So when they are folded in, you place them on top. Place the glue on the top. And then we are going to fold this just like you would do for a box. Make sure all your edges are nice and straight. And then I'm using a little clip to just hold it in place for a second until the glue is completely dry. And I have my hands free to just continue. So another clip. And then this we can put it to the side and work on our second A piece. So you see those strips are on the outside here. So our second A piece, it's cut and scored exactly the same. We are going to turn this over to the bumpy side and I'm going to draw a frame. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the frame, clean up a little bit, 1 inch from my score line. So I'm going to line up the 1 inch mark on my ruler with the score line. And it can be a little bit difficult to see your score line through your ruler. So I'm just making sure that I'm straight. And I'm going to do this on all 4 sides. So that gives us a nice window within that piece. So again, just looking for my score line there. And one more side, and then we are going to cut out that center part. So I'm just using my ruler and my utility knife to do so. So you just go from pencil line to pencil line. And then once we've done that, we can remove that. Don't throw that piece of cardstock away. You might be able to use it for something else. It's a nice piece. And then I've got a piece of acetate to size. Now this is 0.007 of 007, which will work perfectly. But if you have the 0.020, that would even be better. That's even more sturdy. I don't have that, but if you have it, then I recommend you using that one. So I'm going to place some tape around the perimeter of the acetate and around the frame. That's just something that I prefer to do. You could also do it only on one side. And we are going to stick that acetate on the cardstock. So remove all the tape backing. And once we've done that, we are going to stick it down and just make sure that there is no tape showing, not on the inside of the frame and not on the outside of the frame. Now what you can also do is to make this even more sturdy, is to make a second piece of cardstock that fits in between your score lines, cut out that same frame and place that on top of here, so you have a double layer of cardstock. Now I didn't do it because I didn't want to have the bulk on the inside that was going to mess with my drawer getting in and out of the piece. And it turned out sturdy enough to my liking. So now again I have to place some double-sided tape on that 1/2 inch of this piece, and now I'm going to do it right on the dented side. And now you only have to stay in between your score lines, so you don't have to go from edge to edge. So just like that, because we are going to cut those two outside parts away. So I'm going to cut at an angle towards that intersection of the score lines. And then on the other side, I'm slightly angling it. I was in doubt if I was cutting away the score line only, but I made a slight angle there. So just like that. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So that's what we are going to cut away. And then we are also, here I'm going to stick this part down. Again, this 1/2 inch strip will be visible on the outside of your piece. Now you are going to hide that with pattern paper. So to me, that's not an issue. I rather have that than my drawer not getting in and out because it's bumping up against construction strips. So, and I like to have a nice finished edge there. But if you say like, oh, I really hate that, then you leave that 1/2 inch out. So I'm just sticking that down and burnishing it. So now it doesn't look very pretty, but it will be covered with pattern paper. So now we have again that square boxes on the bottom, and here I'm going to cut at an angle on both sides of that square towards that intersection to cut that square out. So that's what you want to have. And you do that for both of the squares. And now I'm going to place some double-sided tape on the bumpy side, and you can also do that before you cut these squares out because I had to clean up my edges later on. And if you're using wet glue, then of course you can, it's not a problem at all. So I'm going to fold and burnish towards the bumpy side on all 3 sides and all score lines. And now we are going to attach this on top of that other piece that we've just made. So I'm just checking here, like, is this sturdy enough for me? But I think it was. So I removed those clips because that glue is dried. And then you are going to place it so the 3 sides that have an edge will go on the 3 sides with an edge. So you have an opening on one of the longer sides. Like that. And you want to make sure that you don't have any overhang of your flaps. And if you do, you have to cut it a little bit shorter. So in order to attach it, I'm going to place some double-sided tape along the cut edge of my 3 side flaps. And I prefer to go close to the cut edge so that's stuck down, and the rest I will fill up with a little bit of wet glue. But I feel like if I'm doing this with wet glue only, I have to hold it in place too much, and here I have the secureness of the double-sided tape. So it's going a little bit quicker. And I like to have my tape from cut edge to cut edge, so I have to clean that up with my scissors a little bit. And that's why it's easier to apply the tape before you make the cuts, but this will work just fine as well. It's just your scissors are getting very sticky by doing this. So one more. And I didn't make a very nice cut on that second to last. How do you call that? So I recut that with my knife a little bit. So in order to attach this nicely, what I'm going to do is remove the tape backing on the longer side and combine it with wet glue to make it stronger and have a nice stick all over the place, but also to give a little bit of wiggle room. So just apply some of that, and then I'm going to place it on top of my first piece, And now I have time to get it where I want it. And I'm just going to stand it up to the side so it's nice and straight and all the way to the bottom. And I give some pressure at the same time so it gets a nice stick. Hold that for a second and then I can do the side flaps. So here I remove the tape backing. Again, I'm just combining it with some wet glue. And then when I'm going to stick this side flap down, I'm going to make sure that the piece that you see on top now is not going over the score line. And then I can stick it down. Put it on the side, and here I can go with my bone folder to give some pressure on it as well. And then I'm going to repeat that for the other short side. Now here on the inside I do have the construction strip over the first piece that we've made. And what I did, and I'm not showing you in the video, but I've got some pattern paper to size and covered those sides on the inside with pattern paper so you don't bump into that construction. So this is the first part of the box. That is complete. Just checking if everything is looking like I want it to be. And then we continue with the drawer that goes in the box. So for that you have 2 pieces of C that measures 9¼ by 1/16 under the 3 inches. So you want to have it slightly under 3 inches. And your shorter pieces measure 7¼ and then slightly under the 3 inches. Now for the longer piece you are going to apply tape on the bumpy side, on the long 1/2 inch, and on the short sides on the top part of your 1/2 inch, like up until the first score line, and you're going to apply it there also on the dented side. Like you see me doing here. So you do this on the top part of that 1/2 inch on the short side. And then we are going to make some cuts in this piece. So on the bottom, you are going to cut with an angle towards the first intersection of your score lines. And then you're going to cut away the score line in the middle. And then there you are going to angle towards that again. And you are going to angle the side of that flap. So you'll do the same thing on the other side. Cut at an angle towards the intersection. Cut your score line away, so on the inside of the score line. And again cut with an angle towards that score line, towards that intersection. And taper that top part. So this is what your longer piece should look like. And then for the shorter piece, that's your piece D. You apply tape also on the bumpy side, again on the 1/2 inch flap on the long side on the bottom. And then on the short sides you will place it in that middle section. You do that on both sides, and then just like we did on the longer piece for that short side, you also will do that on the dented side, in that middle section of your shorter sides. And then again we have to make some cuts. So here we are going to cut the square out with an angle. So you angle towards the intersection of the score lines on both sides. So you cut that off. And then you are going to cut with an angle towards the intersection on top, and cut your top part away by cutting the score line away. So on the inside of the score line. And you do that for the other side as well. So with an angle you cut out that square, and then you angle the middle section towards the top intersection and cut away the score line on top. So this is what it should look like. So you would do that for both your C pieces and both your D pieces. And once we've done that, I'm going to apply some tape Again, this is on the bumpy side, along the cut edge of your top long side. So I'm using 1/4 inch tape here just to save on my 3/8 inch tape. It doesn't need a lot more because I'm also going to combine that with wet glue again. So you will do that on all 4 of your pieces, and then those are prepared. Then you will get your piece B in. This is just a rectangle piece cardstock that you've got to size. And we are going to attach one of your C pieces on the longer side of your B piece. So you are going to line up the edges, and you are going to make sure that you can still see your score line. And you can go pretty close to that score line. And here there was something weird with my double-sided tape. It was I think a manufacturer mistake. I never had that before, but it was not like I started a new rule or something. But it worked out, so it was not a problem. But I pre-folded on my 1/2 inch score line there just a little bit so that I can see that score line a little bit better. And then carefully I am going to place the piece along that score line where I can still see it and line up my edges as good as I can. And then drop it on that piece and burnish that. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with my second C piece. So this is what it should look like at that point. And then we have our 2 D pieces that we are going to attach on the shorter side of piece B. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just making sure that it's going to fit in between there. And it does, so I'm carefully lining it up, and I'm using my left hand here to keep it in place in the middle so it doesn't shove when I'm dropping my large piece. And the last one, and then this is what we have. So now you are going to fold and burnish on all your score lines of your side flaps towards the bumpy side. Also on your smaller flaps there, just fold them over, give them a burnish. And you do that on all 4 sides of your side flaps. So everything is pre-folded. Now we are going to start with standing up the short side and attaching that 1/2 inch onto the longer flap, if that makes sense. So that's going to hold it in place like that. So I'm going to remove the tape backing of that 1/2 inch flap there. I'm going to do that on the other side as well. And then I'm going to stand it up, make sure everything is straight, and stick it on there. And now I'm not doing this with wet glue because it's not going to hold right away. So that's why I prefer the double-sided tape in this case. So I will do the same thing here on the other short side. And here I'm removing the wrong side of the tape backing. It needed to be the other one, so place that back quickly. Because I don't want it to stick somewhere that I don't want it to stick. And then I do the same thing here. Just make sure that that is standing up. So your first layer is stuck down. And I made this a 2-layer side because I want it to be really sturdy. So now we have to fold over our long edge first. So I'm removing the tape backing here, it's hard to see, of that 1/2 inch that we just stuck down. And now I remove the tape backing from the other side. So when I fold over my top flap of the longer side, it will stick on it. So it's a little bit hard to get the tape backing removed there. So now I also remove the tape backing of my 1/4 inch. Yes, there we go. And then I combine that with some wet glue. So I'm placing the wet glue mostly where there isn't any double-sided tape, but you really want to have that edge stuck down. And then I'm just folding over that flap towards the inside. Give that some pressure. And then I can do the same thing on the other side. So again, I'm just removing that tape backing of that little 1/2 inch flap that we've already stuck down. You can see a little bit better what I'm doing, but and remove that strip of tape on top of the flap and combine that with some wet glue. So here I don't really need to wiggle time, so you don't have to place it on top of the double-sided tape, but it's not wrong if you do so. So again, I'm just folding that over towards the inside, and this is why you need to cut it slightly under 3 inches, so you don't bump up against the bottom of your, yeah, I call it a drawer. I'm not sure what's the right name for it. So now I need to remove that double-sided tape of that small 1/2 inch flaps again, and you are totally not able to see what I'm doing, but I'm actually just repeating what I just did on the longer side. So I'm just going to stick that edge down and repeat that for that side as well. So using these flaps, just make sure that there are no openings on my corners and that everything is has an extra sturdiness in just going where it needs to go and staying in place. So this is the last one. And because it's just cardstock, an extra layer doesn't hurt in sturdiness. So nice edges, nice corners, and this will fit in your box that we just made. Now you can see the pattern paper there that I did, so that goes over that construction part, so you don't bump up against it and not able to put your drawer in completely. So it goes in like that, and I will be making something on the long side of the drawer to help getting it in and out of that box that we've made. And of course we are going to make this pretty with some pattern paper. So yeah, we are going to combine this piece with a small folio for some photo opportunity, and that will be in the next video. So thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.